14%. That's how much some Rolex watches jumped overnight in price in January 2025. If you'd been saving for a gold Dayton, dreaming about it, planning for it, maybe even putting money aside every month, well, keep on dreaming because Rolex seems determined to price out people from getting a watch. But that's not only what they did, and if you found out the true extent of what is really going on at Rolex, you'd be absolutely furious. This is the most dramatic year for Rolex in recent memory. Let's dive in. Change 6. The price shock heard around the world. As midnight struck on the 1st of January 2025, Rolex authorized dealers worldwide to update their price lists. Within hours, watch forums explode and comment sections turn into war zones. But this wasn't like previous years. This was different. Steel models went up 1 to 3%. The Submariner date went from $9,150 to $9,250. It is a modest $100 bump, but that's not where the crazy is. The yellow gold Daytona jumped up from $31,900 to $36,400. That's $4,500 added overnight, a 14.1% increase. Rolex flexed on the white gold Daytona with Oyster Flex 2. It went from $35,000 to $38,100, over 8%. Don't even get us started on the day date 40 inches yellow gold. It went up 11% across the board. The pattern was unmistakable. If your watch contained gold, you got hammered. If it was pure steel, you barely felt it. On average, across all models, Rolex prices rose 4.8%. But that average disguises the chaos. Some watches went up 1%. Others jumped nearly 20%. Why such a massive split? Gold. Gold prices in 2024 went absolutely insane. In January 2024, gold traded around $2,000 per ounce. By December 2024, $2,640 per ounce. That's a 32% increase in 12 months. And Rolex uses a lot of gold. A day date 40 contains roughly 4 ounces of 18-karat gold. Back in 2015, when the model debuted, that gold cost less than $5,000 in raw materials. By January 2025, over $10,000. Rolex had a choice. They could eat the cost and squeeze margins, or pass it to customers. They chose to pass it to the customers because why the heck not? Critics immediately accused Rolex of price gouging. But Rolex doesn't give a flip what critics think. They don't operate like most luxury brands. They don't give discounts. They don't chase volume. They price watches to maintain brand positioning and cover rising costs, not to maximize short-term profits. When gold jumps 32%, raising gold watch prices by 10 to 14% is actually restrained. They absorbed part of the increase themselves. So maybe Rolex isn't so bad after all. Still, that doesn't make it easier to swallow if you were planning to buy. And that didn't make the next thing that happened in May easy to digest for Rolex buyers. In May 2025, Rolex raised prices again, this time by approximately 3% across the board in the United States. The culprit? Tariffs. The Trump administration imposed a 10% import duty on Swiss goods in April 2025, with threats of escalation to 31% if Switzerland didn't negotiate. For Rolex, a Swiss company importing watches worth billions annually into the US, this was a nightmare. A 10% tariff on a $10,000 watch adds $1,000 in import duties. Rolex couldn't absorb the entire hit without destroying their margins. So they raised prices 3%, splitting the difference. But Rolex did something that made authorized dealers furious. Rolex reportedly asked them to give up 1% of their margin, dropping from 34% to 33% on every watch sold. The result? A Submariner date that cost $9,250 in January jumped to around $9,550 by May. GMT Master 2 models pushed past $11,000. Datejusts climbed 4.3%, 2 price hikes in 5 months. That's unprecedented in modern Rolex history. But the numbers are one thing. The human cost is another. Imagine you're a 28-year-old who's been saving for 3 years to buy your first Rolex. You've got $8,000 set aside. Your goal is a Datejust, the classic, versatile, attainable Rolex that represents making it. In January 2024, a steel Datejust 41 cost around $7,400. Realistic goal, right? A few more months of saving and you're there. Then in May, Rolex cracks you like Anthony Joshua cracked Jake Paul's jaw with another price. Your goal keeps moving. Every time you get close, Rolex raises prices again. It's like running on a treadmill that keeps speeding up. Now multiply that frustration across thousands of aspiring Rolex buyers worldwide, and you understand why forums are filled with anger. Rolex doesn't care about regular customers anymore. One Reddit user wrote, "They only want billionaires. I've been on a wait list for 18 months, another complained. And now, when I finally get the call, the price will be 15% higher than when I started. The resentment is real. The frustration is justified. Because for many people, a Rolex isn't just a watch, it's a milestone. But if rising prices were the only change Rolex made in 2025, collectors could at least adjust their budgets and move on. What happened next at Watches and Wonders turned frustration into panic. Change 5. Discontinuations and new releases that sparked chaos. In April 2025, in Geneva, Switzerland. Watches and Wonders. The watch industry's biggest annual event takes place. Rolex unveils their latest models. As always, the presentation is slick, professional, minimal. No drama. Just elegant photos of new watches on Rolex's website, accompanied by technical specs and press releases written in the brand's signature understated style. But within hours, the watch community erupts. Because Rolex didn't just introduce new watches, they quietly killed off some of the most beloved configurations collectors had been waiting years to buy. Remember the celebration motif dials? Those mesmerizing patterns that looked like confetti exploded across the face of an Oyster Perpetual or Datejust? They launched in 2024 to massive acclaim. Collectors loved them. They were playful, artistic, totally different from Rolex's typically conservative aesthetic. They felt fresh. By April 2025, it was discontinued. No warning, no announcement. Just gone. Same story for several of the colorful Oyster Perpetual dials. The bright red? Discontinued. The vibrant yellow? Gone. Coral pink? Also axed. Why does this matter? Because discontinuations create immediate scarcity, and scarcity drives prices insane. Within weeks of the announcement, pre-owned celebration dial Oyster Perpetuals started trading at 20 to 30% premiums over retail. Dealers who'd been sitting on inventory suddenly had gold mines. Collectors who'd been waiting for the right time to pull the trigger realized they'd waited too long. The secondary market went bananas. People on wait lists couldn't get the watch they wanted. This is classic Rolex strategy. Introduce a model, let it build hype for a year or two, then discontinue it right when demand peaks, creating instant collectability. It's brilliant brand management. It's also infuriating if you're the person who was patiently waiting. While Rolex took away some dials, they added others. And these weren't subtle tweaks. They added something spicy to the Sky Dweller. They added a new, vibrant green dial on yellow gold models. It is a punchy, almost neon lime green that makes a statement. Then the Daytona got some sprucing up too. Rolex added turquoise dials on gold models. Yes, turquoise. The watch that Steve McQueen made famous now comes in a color more suited to Miami Beach than a racetrack. For the Perpetual 1908, Rolex added full yellow gold versions with a Setimo bracelet. They also introduced a platinum edition with a blue guilloche dial that collectors immediately nicknamed the Tiffany 1908. The GMT Master II got stone dials, actual tiger ironstone, on gold root beer models. Each dial is unique because it's cut from natural stone. No two watches look identical. For the Datejust, red ombre dials on smaller sizes. The color gradually transitions from deep burgundy at the top to lighter red at the bottom. Rolex is pushing color. Bold color. Aggressive color. The kind of dials that 10 years ago would have seemed too daring for the brand. Why the shift? No one knows for sure, but buyers have come up with some pretty interesting theories. Theory 1. Demographics. Younger buyers, Gen Z and millennials, want watches that express personality. They grew up with Apple watches that let you customize everything. A black dial Submariner feels boring to them. They want turquoise Daytonas and green Sky Dwellers that make them stand out. Theory 2. Market saturation. Rolex has sold millions of black dial Submariners and silver dial Datejusts. At some point, you need to offer something different to keep existing customers interested. Bold dials create new reasons to buy. Either way, the strategy is working. The new colorful configurations are generating massive buzz. Whether they'll hold value long-term remains to be seen, but in the short term, they're creating conversation, and for Rolex, conversation equals demand. However, some models didn't change. The Submariner? Unchanged. Still, the same black or green dials collectors know and love. The GMT Master 2, Pepsi and Batman? Unchanged. Still commanding multi-year waitlists and 30% plus premiums on the secondary market. The Steel Daytona? Unchanged. Still nearly impossible to get from an authorized dealer. Rolex knows better than to mess with perfection. These models are printing money. Why risk changing them? Instead, they experiment with less iconic models, Sky Dwellers, perpetual 1908s, certain Datejust configurations. Models where they can take risks without jeopardizing core revenue. It's a smart approach. But it also means if you want a classic, conservative Rolex, your options are shrinking. The brand is pushing you toward bolder choices, whether you like it or not. Discontinuations and bold new dials created chaos in the collector community. But nothing, and we mean nothing, compared to the confusion and anger around Rolex's waitlist system in 2025. Because something weird started happening. Some people were getting calls in weeks. Others were waiting years. Change 4. The waitlist mystery. This is where things get really strange. Throughout 2025, watch forums filled with contradictory reports about Rolex wait times. Some people claimed waitlists were collapsing. Others insisted they were longer than ever. Both groups had evidence. Both groups were furious. So, what's actually happening? Let's start with the numbers, because they tell a fascinating story. Watch Charts and Morgan Stanley released a joint report in early 2025 tracking Rolex authorized dealer wait times based on data from Reddit's r/Rolex community. They found out that for the Submariner date, the average wait time dropped from 105 days in 2023 to 60 days by late 2024, and down to as low as 2 to 4 weeks for some buyers in 2025. The average wait time for the GMT Master 2 went from 180 days in 2022 to 90 days by late 2024, with reports of some buyers receiving calls in under 3 months in 2025. People hoping to get the Explorer and Explorer 2 have to wait from 5 days to 6 months, with most buyers getting calls within 3 months. But for Air King, there are reports of people walking out same day with no purchase history. For Oyster Perpetual, wait varies wildly by dial color. Popular dials like blue and green still command 6 to 12-month waits. Less popular colors like silver and black are available in weeks. These are dramatic improvements compared to the pandemic-era insanity of 2021 to 2022 when Submariner waitlists stretched 2 to 3 years. But here's the catch. The improvements aren't universal. Some models are just impossible to get right now. If you have been eyeing the Steel Daytona, you could still be looking at 2 to 5 years for most buyers. Some authorized dealers flat out refuse to even add new customers to the list. The GMT Master 2 Pepsi, despite overall improvements, still commands 18 to 36-month waits. The blue and mint green dials on steel models? Multiple years if you're not a VIP customer. For precious metal Daytonas, 3 to 5 years, assuming you even get on the list. So, basically, wait times are both improving and staying terrible, depending entirely on which model you want. So, why are wait times changing? We'll get to that soon. Rolex buyers can enjoy the fact that models that seemed impossible now look attainable. Here's what we want. In the UK, Rolex authorized dealers started removing exhibition-only signs from their display cases in late 2024 and early 2025. For context, those signs appeared during the pandemic when demand exploded and supply collapsed. They meant you can look at this watch and try it on, but you can't buy it today. Every hyped model had one. Walking into a Rolex felt like visiting a museum. Everything on display, nothing available. By January 2025, Watches of Switzerland Group locations in London had removed the signs from most models. Only Daytonas and a handful of ultra-premium pieces still had them. Rolex UK confirmed that authorized dealers now have the option to remove the signs at their discretion. Translation: inventory is improving enough that dealers can actually sell watches instead of just showing them. This was huge. Psychologically, it signals that the worst of the shortage is over. But what is the secret? Why are wait times improving? We think it's because of 3. Let us know if we are right or not. We believe the first reason for better wait times is the demand normalization. The pandemic bubble burst. Speculators left. Crypto bros moved on. Real demand from actual watch enthusiasts is lower than the artificial demand driven by flippers in 2021 to 2022. The second one is an increase in production. Rolex opened temporary production facilities in 2023 to 2024, while their massive Bully factory, scheduled for completion in 2029, is under construction. Output may have increased 5 to 10%. And now, our third and final theory. The secondary market saturation. Gray market dealers got burned buying watches at premiums during the bubble. Now they're sitting on expensive inventory nobody wants at inflated prices. So they're not buying from ADs anymore, freeing up supply for regular customers. Probably all 3 factors combined. What do you think? Do you have other reasons in mind? The waiting period is changing, but here's what hasn't changed. The VIP system. Rolex authorized dealers still prioritize customers based on purchase history. If you've bought jewelry, if you've bought multiple watches, if you're a local celebrity, you get preferential treatment. First-time customers, you're at the bottom of the list. And for hyped models, the bottom of the list might as well be no list at all. This breeds resentment, because the system isn't transparent. There's no official queue, no confirmation email saying, "You're number 73. Just vague promises and the hope that maybe, someday, your AD will call. For many buyers, the frustration isn't even about the wait itself. It's about the uncertainty and the feeling that the game is rigged. So, prices are up. Favorite dials are discontinued. Wait lists, while changing, are still confusing and unfair. If you're thinking, this all sounds terrible, we've got some good news. Because Rolex didn't just make changes that angered customers. They also did this next part. Change 3. The certified pre-owned expansion. Alright, let's take a breath. Because not everything Rolex did in 2025 was designed to make collectors' wallets scream. This one might not be all bad, but you'll let us know what you think about it. The Certified Pre-Owned CPO program launched quietly in late 2022 and expanded throughout 2023 to 2024. It hit a major milestone in 2025, and while it's not perfect, It represents Rolex finally acknowledging a reality they'd ignored for decades. The secondary market exists, and they should be part of it. The concept of the CPO is simple. Authorized Rolex dealers buy pre-owned watches. They send them to Rolex service centers for full authentication, servicing, and refurbishment using genuine parts. Rolex then certifies them, issues a special guarantee card, and provides a 2-year warranty. The result is a pre-owned Rolex with official Rolex backing. Not the gray market, not some dealer's personal guarantee. Rolex themselves saying, yes, this watch is authentic, and yes, we stand behind it. For buyers nervous about fakes, Franken watches, or sketchy sellers, CPO is a game changer. In May 2025, Rolex made a crucial adjustment. They lowered the minimum age for CPO eligibility from 3 years to 2 years. This might sound minor. It's not. Opening up 2-year-old watches means pieces from 2023 forward can now enter CPO. That's a massive inventory expansion. Potentially thousands of additional watches flooding into the certified market. Why does this matter? Because 2-year-old Rolexes are barely used. They're essentially like new conditions. Someone bought them, wore them for a year or 18 months, then decided to sell them. Maybe they upgraded. Maybe they needed cash. Maybe they realized the watch didn't fit their lifestyle. Whatever the reason, you're getting a watch that's 95% as good as new, with official Rolex certification and warranty, often at prices slightly below current retail. For buyers, it's a no-brainer, assuming you can swallow the CPO premium. So, here's the catch. CPO watches aren't cheap. Studies show CPO pieces command 15 to 40% premiums over equivalent non-certified pre-owned watches, depending on region and dealer. Let's paint a picture finer than Picasso's. Just kidding. So, a gray market dealer might sell a pre-owned Submariner Date for $13,000. The same watch through CPO? $16,900. At a US dealer like 1,916 company, or as high as $18,460 at Bucherer in Europe. That's a massive gap. Critics argue Rolex is double-dipping. They already made money selling the watch new, and now they're profiting again by certifying and reselling it. Meanwhile, independent gray market dealers who've been serving the pre-owned community for decades get undercut by a program with Rolex's official stamp. But Rolex defenders say buyers are paying for peace of mind. Zero risk of fakes. Full Rolex service. Official warranty. For wealthy buyers, an extra $3,000 to $5,000 to eliminate all uncertainty is worth it. Rolex understood that psychology and tapped into it because the CPO sales numbers are exploding. In Q2 2025, 6,571 watches sold, worth $132 million. In Q3 2025, 8,395 watches sold, worth $178 million. By late 2025, industry analysts projected CPO would hit $650 to $700 million in annual sales. That's roughly 10% of the entire Rolex secondary market. Over 100 authorized dealers globally now participate in the program. Inventory has grown from around 4,000 watches in early 2024 to over 8,500 by mid-2025. That's not just growth. That's an entirely new revenue stream Rolex built from scratch in under 3 years. Customers are loving the definite intrues, the Fauardin crasses it. Apart from the peace of mind they get from CPO, it creates a third option beyond authorized dealer waitlists and gray market dealers. Plus, it also has another benefit for Rolex. It's stabilizing the broader secondary market. By setting official pricing and adding certified inventory, Rolex is curbing some of the wildest price swings that plagued the gray market during the pandemic bubble. Independent dealers hate it. They're getting squeezed. So, CPO is expanding. Waitlists are improving for some models. Prices went up, but not as much as gold prices did. This all feels manageable, right? Like maybe Rolex is finding its footing after years of chaos. And then they dropped another bombshell at Watches and Wonders that made everyone forget about price hikes and wait lists. And that's the next change we'll talk about next. Change 2. The Land Dweller. Rolex's biggest innovation in decades. In April 2025 at the Watches and Wonders, Rolex unveiled the Oyster Perpetual Land Dweller. The watch world stops during the unveiling. Not because it's beautiful, though it is. Not because it's expensive, though some versions certainly are. But because the Land Dweller represents something Rolex almost never does. Genuine, groundbreaking technical innovation. This isn't a new dial color. This isn't a slight case redesign. This is Rolex saying we've been building the same movements for decades, and now we're going to completely change the game. Let us explain why this matters. At the heart of the Land Dweller is caliber 7135, Rolex's first high-frequency movement, beating at 5 Hz, which is 36,000 vibrations per hour. For context, most Rolex movements beat at 4 Hz, 28,800 vibrations per hour. That's the industry standard. Reliable, proven. 5 Hz is different. It's faster, more precise, theoretically more accurate. But it's also harder to build and maintain because faster oscillation means more energy consumption and more wear on components. So why would Rolex do it? Because they invented a completely new escapement system, the Dynapulse, that makes 5 Hz practical. The escapement is the heart of any mechanical watch. It's the mechanism that converts the mainspring's stored energy into precise, timed releases that move the hands. For over 200 years, nearly every mechanical watch has used the Swiss lever escapement. It works, it's reliable, it's proven, but it's also inefficient. Roughly 30% of the energy from the mainspring gets lost to friction in a traditional escapement. Rolex's Dynapulse escapement changes that. Instead of metal components sliding against each other, creating friction, the Dynapulse uses silicon wheels that roll against each other. Silicon is incredibly light and virtually frictionless. The result: 30% better energy efficiency than a traditional escapement. That's not a minor improvement. That's revolutionary. Think about what that means. The watch can beat faster while using less energy, resulting in the same 66-hour power reserve as lower-frequency Rolex movements. It's like building a car engine that revs higher while using less gas. This is obsessive engineering. This is Rolex saying we're not just making watches, we're advancing the entire industry. The last time Rolex launched a completely new model line was the Sky Dweller in 2012. Before that, you'd have to go back to the Yachtmaster in 1992. New Rolex collections are rare. Maybe once a decade if you're lucky. But the Land Dweller isn't just new, it's a statement. It's Rolex entering the integrated bracelet luxury sports watch segment dominated by Audemars Piguet Royal Oak and Patek Philippe Nautilus. For years, collectors begged Rolex to make something in that category. Rolex listened. It's unmistakably Rolex, but unlike anything currently in their lineup. But what about the price? Here's where it gets interesting. Given all the innovation, you'd expect Land Dwellers to cost $50,000 minimum, right? Nope. The 40mm steel and white gold, Rolesor, costs $14,900. The 36mm Everose gold, $42,000. The 40mm platinum costs $63,500. The steel and white gold version, the most accessible, costs less than a steel Daytona and barely more than a GMT Master 2. Mind you, this new watch has 32 patents. For a watch with that much patent, and with its revolutionary movement, and an integrated bracelet design, that's shockingly reasonable. Rolex could have positioned this as an ultra-premium piece at $30,000 plus. Instead, they priced it competitively, signaling they want the Land Dweller to be a volume model, not a limited halo product. They've even signaled this with their subtle marketing. Before the official launch, tennis legend Roger Federer was spotted wearing a Land Dweller prototype at Wimbledon. The photos went viral immediately. Federer has been a Rolex ambassador since 2006. When he wears something new, it's deliberate. It builds hype. It signals this is important. By launch day, the Land Dweller already had months of buzz. Pre-orders flooded authorized dealers. Some variants, particularly the Platinum and Everose Gold models, immediately developed waitlists. Reaction to the Land Dweller split the watch community down the middle. The enthusiasts love it. The purist hates it. They think with the integrated bracelets, Rolex is chasing trends, and Rolex shouldn't change trends. The skeptics think, even with the 32 parents, this is uncharted territory for Rolex. What do you think? Despite the differences in opinions, here's what's undeniable. The Land Dweller is a bet on the future. Whether that evolution succeeds or flops won't be clear for years. But the fact that Rolex is even trying is significant. If you're thinking Rolex has changed a lot in 1 year, you're right. But there's one more piece to this puzzle, the one that explains how Rolex plans to sustain all this chaos long-term. Change 1. Production and factory developments, the long game. Everything we've discussed so far, price hikes, discontinuations, CPO expansion, the Land Dweller launch, is happening against the backdrop of a much bigger story. Rolex is fundamentally restructuring how they manufacture watches. And this restructuring will determine the brand's trajectory for the next 20 years. In 2023, Rolex quietly announced they'd opened temporary production facilities to supplement their existing Swiss factories. Why temporary? Because their permanent solution, a massive new factory in Boulay, Switzerland, won't be fully operational until around 2029. These temporary sites reportedly boosted production by 5 to 10% in 2024 to 2025. Not enormous, but enough to explain why Submariner waitlists dropped from 2 years to 2 months for some buyers. The temporary facilities focus on component manufacturing cases, bracelets, and dials rather than full watch assembly. This allows Rolex to increase output without compromising their exacting quality standards by rushing final assembly. And with their permanent solution in sight, Rolex holds all the cards. The permanent solution is staggering in scale. Rolex broke ground on a new factory campus in Boll, Switzerland, several years ago. When complete, it will be one of the largest watch manufacturing facilities in the world. The estimated cost? Over 1 billion Swiss francs, or approximately $1.1 billion. The project should be completed by 2029, and it should boost Rolex's annual production by 20 to 30% once fully operational. Think about what that means. Rolex currently produces around 1 million watches per year. A 30% increase would add 300,000 watches annually. That's more watches than many luxury brands produce in total. But why does Rolex need more capacity? The obvious answer is demand exceeds supply. Waitlists prove it. Secondary market premiums prove it. People want Rolex watches faster than Rolex can make them. But there's a deeper strategic reason. Rolex wants to grow without sacrificing exclusivity. That's a delicate balance. Make too many watches, and you risk becoming common. Make too few, and you frustrate customers who defect to competitors. The goal is sustainable growth. Increase production just enough to meet organic demand from serious buyers while maintaining scarcity for hyped models. The Boll factory gives them that flexibility. They can ramp production when needed, scale back when necessary, and always have capacity in reserve. So here we are. The year Rolex raised prices, discontinued fan favorites, confused everyone with inconsistent wait times, expanded their pre-owned program, launched the most technically advanced watch they've ever built, and started building factories to double production over the next decade. It's messy, it's chaotic, It's frustrating if you're trying to buy your first Rolex. But zoom out, and you see a brand navigating impossible contradictions even if there are no perfect answers. The thing is, every decision Rolex makes will anger someone. But here's what we keep coming back to. Rolex is still the most desired watch brand in the world. Secondary market values remain strong. Waitlists are improving. CPO is thriving. The land dweller generated more excitement than any new Rolex in a decade. Are customers furious? Some, yes, but more are curious, engaged, and still desperately trying to buy these watches. So, what do you think? Are Rolex's 2025 changes brilliant strategy or brand suicide? Are you more likely to buy a Rolex now or less? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And, if you made it this far, like this video and hit subscribe. We're tracking every move in the luxury watch world, and 2026 is going to be even crazier. See you in the next one.